All right. We're now broadcasting again. So,
All right.
hello everyone. Welcome to the Talking About Survivor pre-show for Survivor 29 San Juan del Sur, take 2. We're experimenting this season with doing these live Google Hangouts. So last time we tried this, we had some snafus, but hopefully that it'll run a little smoother this time.
Yep. We'll see.
Yep. So, if everybody is, if anyone is new to talking about Survivor, Mike and I have been talking about the show Survivor for, since what, 2006, right? I think that's right.
Yeah.
Been a while. So what we do in the pre-show every year is we just kind of run down the cast bios for all of the castaways on the upcoming season and discuss each of them for a few minutes, make some snap judgments based on the information available on the website, and that's about it. So that's the plan for this evening, and so how are you doing, Mike?
Good. And they were definitely snap judgments. Like, for example, last season, we were rooting for a guy to be voted off first based on his cast bio that we then were rooting for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We actually started watching it. Some of that had to do with the scenario that he got put in, but we also, his humor came across a lot more. It was a lot funnier in person than it was.
Yep.
It just sounded like an asshole in writing. When you saw him deliver in person, it had a little bit of there was some self-deprecating piece to it that made it just a little bit more funny. So anyway, the point is these are truly judgments.
Yeah, so we are frequently wrong in our assessments, in the sense that we make our snap judgments, and then when we actually see people on the show, it turns out that they're either better or worse than we expected.
Yep. Yeah, this isn't like the looking at like an NFL draft prospect or something. We don't really do a lot of research. We just kind of read their bios and make a guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that is interesting to consider this season is that it is a return to the blood versus water, the blood versus water premise or theme or whatever, which the last time they tried it, I don't know if you guys are seeing this. Lynn is jumping up, and I just saw her out of the corner of my eye on the video. It'll be an entertaining Easter egg for people. Anyway, the last time they did blood versus water, what happened is that they had couples, both blood relations and either friends or boyfriend or girlfriend, married, so on. That they got one night together on the beach, and then they were immediately after that split up, and that was the two teams, is the respective partners of all the pairs. It's not clear whether they're going to do that this time or not.
Right, because it ended up looking like what they meant by blood versus water meant like people who were in a related. So like blood seemed to, like the blood theme counted whether you were a significant other or a family. And
Mm-hmm.
water was like the friendships you made and the bonds you made on the island with people who you'd not met before. So that was sort of, that was the dynamic last time, where it was meant to be, people who were blood relations versus people who were not blood relations.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't really figured out how they're going to do it this year, except we noticed that there's an odd number of pairs. So
Yeah. So I think what we had heard about the last time was that there was originally going to be 10 pairs for a total of 20 people, 5 of blood relations, 5 for water. But then when there was a medical issue with one of the potential contestants, that pair was scrapped, and then therefore you couldn't have done even tribes that way. So it raises the question then, if we have an odd number of pairs this time, will it be the same issue? But I think I've also read on the website, the cbs.com/survivor site, that Exile Island is returning this time. So it's also possible that what they could do is have some way to make an extra pair be separate at first. You know, they've done that in the past sometimes too, where they say like the very first thing everyone has to do is each side has to vote one person out or something like that.
Yeah, they could do that with just one of the tribes and say you have an extra pair, so pick a pair to leave and go to exile. So they could do that. Oh, as a brief aside, do you watch The Biggest Loser at all?
No, I mean I've seen episodes here and there, but I don't watch it regularly.
They have introduced the Exile Island concept to The Biggest Loser this season. So whoever gets voted off goes to like this other workout like ranch thing where they only work where there's only 2 people there, and all they do is like eat healthy and work out for that week, and whoever loses the most percentage body weight that week stays, the other one goes. So they compete to lose weight in this Exile Island format, and then one will get to go back in. So it's a new concept, but it's pulled directly from Survivor. I mean, you can tell it. The whole operation is identical to, you know, from the head-to-head competition, you know, the chance to get back in the game. So I just thought that was funny when I saw that. You know? Yeah,
getting some reality show cross-pollination.
Yep, it works.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to, as they listen or watch, to follow along with what we're looking at as far as these bios, if you go to the main website for Survivor, which is cbs.com/survivor, and you have to scroll down a little bit, and right now you have to click More Posts at the bottom, and then there is the under the heading Survivor San Juan del Sur, there is the Cast Bios, and that's the page that you're looking for.
There's an alternative to get there that I think is a little quicker.
Okay.
There are drop-down menus on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to More, there's one that's after About, there's Cast.
Yes, that is easier. So I think that's probably the way to go then. So there are, in addition to these bios, there are short videos of each pair, and then there's another video that is Probst giving his assessment. So I watched those and I took some brief notes, but we're mostly, I think, going to be talking about the bios just because there's all sorts of fun little details in there, and it's entertaining to use that as our basis for the snap judgments and so on.
Yes. And that, by the way, I'm not ignoring the call. That's actually what I have right here that I'm looking at.
All right. So the plan, what we usually do is we have a 2-minute timer, and so for each contestant we set the timer and we literally will limit our discussion of each person to just that 2 minutes. And so in this case, because they are all listed as pairs, I think it makes the most sense to just do a timer for 4 minutes for each contestant. So each pair, excuse me, of contestants. And so with 9 total pairs, that's going to be 36 total minutes plus or minus the little bits of chit chat that we're going to likely have between.
Sounds good.
All right. So let's start. Let me get my timer ready. And so let's start in the order that they're listed on the site here, which is starting with Dale Wentworth and Kelly Wentworth. Timer started. So Dale and Kelly are father and daughter. He is 55, she is 28. He is a farmer, and she is a marketing manager.
Who presumably grew up on a farm.
Yes, that's, I think, a valid assumption based on the information we have. Also, the video, they do talk about that. Although one of the things that Probst mentioned in his video about them was just to note that there's been some past conflict between them related to when I guess he got remarried. So he raised the question of, is that going to be something where they can have kind of like a redemptive arc that brings them closer together and they work really well together, or is that going to mean that there's conflict? Hard to know.
Yeah. I'm thinking that probably hoping that it's going to be a redemptive arc.
Yeah. Certainly that's...
Yes.
Yeah, to the extent that it can be nudged in that direction, we can imagine that the show would be interested in that. Plus, it's also just something that I think makes sense. You know, you take people and put them outside of their normal context and in something where they're hopefully motivated to work well together. So, you know, I think we've seen historically on the show that people tend to try to build relationships in this context.
Yes.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I liked both their answers for if you could have 3 things on the island, what would they be?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that's a little just selfish because it's actually a question that we use in assessing, like in interviews, because the idea is you ask that question, if you could only take 3 things to a desert island, what would they be? Because the idea is, can they think practically under pressure? Because what you would want with you, like, I'm sorry, it's wishes in the case of the interview, so you get to wish for some stuff, is either they need to, there's 4 choices that they need to hit on, and one is either food or water, shelter, then companionship, and then something creative. But you don't want all like creative things, but they need to be able to come up with those practical things under pressure, because that's legitimately what you would wish for if you were truly going to wish, and that's the idea is that. So both of them came up with things like that, a map, a book, and toilet paper. So again, very practical. Those kind of fit into the shelter type thing. And companionship, book counts as companionship in the way that we do it. And then the girl would want a book, picture of her mom, again companionship, and a journal so I could write down my experiences. That's something creative, right there. So they would have nailed this question and have come up with some things that are legitimate.
Yep. That's always one of the more fun questions to look at. We also sometimes talk about the pet peeves. In this case, Dale, his pet peeve is people who never return phone calls, whereas Kelly's is lazy people, overconfidence, not sticking to your word, bad drivers, and angry people. And then in parentheses, get over it already.
Yeah.
It's interesting sometimes when people have too many overly specific pet peeves that maybe seems like they might be an irritable sort of person, but those all seem pretty general and straightforward. Oh, and that's the timer.
All right, onward.
All right. Next up, we have Drew Christie and Alec Christie. Timer started. So these guys are brothers. Drew is 25. Alec is 22. These guys remind me very much of the last set of brothers we had on the show, namely Aras and it was Vetus, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Aras and Vetus. Just in the sense that we have the older brother who is the college dropout, and he does, like, he's got a modeling career apparently, but it's also he quit an athletic scholarship so he could, quote, party and have a good college experience, and then proceeded to also drop out of school altogether. And then the younger brother is the responsible one, and there's clearly a little bit of friction there in their video.
Oh, is there? Nice. I didn't see that. I did notice, though, that makes a lot more sense on the older brother's answers.
Yeah.
Because he really owns that. You know, three words to describe himself are adventurous, spontaneous, and goofball.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the feeling that he feels like dropping out of college wasn't a mistake, it was a spontaneous decision. I was ready for more adventure. College was not adventurous enough. So he's almost, retroactively excused his behavior.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? So that could be interesting, because he seems to be owning that piece of himself. So.
Well, and college is not for everybody, so it may well be that that was actually the right decision for him. But I also I got a little bit of the impression watching him on the video that it was kind of one of those things of it was retroactively not right for him because he didn't take it seriously enough to do well. You know what I mean? But
Two of his hobbies are booze cruising and partying.
yeah, yeah. Of course, if he is a model,
Also,
although
and
that's not what his. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say he is the older brother, but he is only 25. So
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah,
Well, it's interesting though that I actually just realized that in his video he talked about having this modeling career, and then that's a hobby, but his occupation here is listed as traveling sales representative in the family business.
right. So his parents support him
Yeah.
and employ him so that he can do what he wants. They enable
Yeah,
that.
that sounds like it's probably right. He does his 3 desert island things though are pretty good. 1 survival knife, 2 butane lighter, 3 jam box.
Very
I like
practical, and his creative one was funny, so it was legitimately funny.
Yeah.
So
Um,
his brother tried to also be funny and said a Playboy magazine, and I didn't.
yeah. Well, we only had about 15-20 seconds left on the timer for Drew and Alec Christie before we lost the call. But did you have anything else left to say about them?
Nope.
All right. So let's move on then to Jeremy Collins and Val Collins. And get my timer ready. Okay. So Jeremy Collins and Val Collins are married. So they are a water pairing as opposed to the 2 previous ones were blood.
Yep.
As in father and daughter and brothers. So these are married. Jeremy is a Cambridge firefighter, which made me say, "Hey, I know Cambridge." And then Val is a police officer in Foxborough, which is also nearby. So they are. Apparently, she is going to do what many cops do when they come on Survivor, which is to not tell people. We've talked about that in the past. It seems like I don't know that I think that's a wise move because it just starts you off on a foot where you're lying to people. I don't know that the idea of would people have such a negative reaction to the idea that they're a cop that it's worth starting off every single relationship with a lie about fundamentally who you are as a person?
I don't understand that one. Like I used to be a professional athlete one. I kind of get.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to head off they don't need the money.
Right.
That kind of part. I don't know what the cop thing is like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose it's true that there are some people who have very strong feelings about police officers, and those aren't always positive. But at the same time, I don't know. It seems like an overreaction to me, and yet it's always either cops or lawyers that don't want to tell people what they really do. I guess the professional athlete still feels like a different thing because that's almost like a celebrity angle as opposed to just lying about what you do.
Right.
But whatever. She describes herself as competitive, loving, and loyal. She is 35 and he is 36. she would bring onto the island. She would bring picture of her daughters to inspire her, a loci bracelet with mud from the Dead Sea to remind me to be hopeful at my lowest point, and water from Mount Everest to remind me to stay hopeful at my highest point. Which is one thing, I guess, because the bracelet has those two things.
Yeah.
And then the third one is matching bracelet I share with my kids to feel connected to them. So, she's obviously very devoted and connected to her family. I mean, I think that's pretty strong indication of that.
Yeah, and his were the same. I mean, he wasn't as descriptive, but it was the bracelet from the daughters, pictures of the daughters, almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
Mother in there. He was sort of a professional athlete, I guess. I mean, I won't say sort of. He was paid to be an athlete. He was in the indoor football league.
Oh, okay. The arena football?
Yeah, that was his personal claim to fame, is that he made it into that league without having even played college football. So, yeah. So he'll be athletic.
Mm-hmm. There were some fun things
out about them to me, though. They're just kind of...
There were some fun things in the video of them. One was they actually not only did they work out and get in shape to be on the show, but they also, as part of that, practiced going with less food and stuff. And then there was one particular just exchange that I thought was entertaining between the two of them, where she's describing. Hang on, the timer's going, but I'll just give this quote right now. But so she is describing, I think the only thing we argue about is I'm always like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And he's like, ah! And that was just the quote. I thought it was funny. Anyway, though, that's time for Jeremy Collins and Val Collins. Next up, we have our one celebrity for the season. Our next pair is John Rocker and Julie McGee. So you told me a little bit about John Rocker in the last time we tried to do this, but maybe take two for any of our current listeners that might not be aware of who this guy is.
Okay. I mean, I'll probably not search the full quote again. I'll just paraphrase. Because when you asked me, you said that he was somewhat, you've heard that he was somewhat polarizing or something like that. And
yeah, that he had a lot of baggage.
A lot of baggage, that's right.
Yeah.
And you were curious what his baggage is. And so John Rocker was a pitcher for the Atlanta Braves. He was a closer, which means he's one of those pitchers that could be required to come in every game and just maybe throw for like 3 batters. So there's a sort of different intensity that comes with those kind of guys, but he was on a whole nother level of anybody else. Like, he would sprint to the mound when he came in. Like, so it was part of his persona was to be this intense, overbearing personality, which fit with his job, because his job was to come in and, and shut down a game. So you want to be, like, overbearing. However, he took that a little far and made some pretty absurd quotes. For example, he was once asked if he'd ever play for the Mets or the Yankees, and he said no, he could never play in New York, basically because it's full of bums, hippies, fags, black people, Koreans, and he doesn't want to be around any of them. Like, those were his actual words. Like, that's not, my.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That term. Those were his terms.
Right.
He was that rude in an interview, and so that was pretty polarizing and probably considered some baggage. And he used to get booed in New York and stuff like that. If that wasn't enough, later in his career, he was part of the steroid indictments and things like that. And they asked him, did you ever use steroids when you were playing? And he said, well, hell yes, I did. I mean, well, let's be real. Who didn't? Which the league didn't really like, the fans didn't really like. I mean, nobody really liked that. So he has, a tendency to be, again, very intense and to say whatever's on his mind, regardless of whether it's tactful or appropriate. And sometimes even completely in the face of that, like purposely, when he knows it would be more tactful to say something else, he chooses to ramp up what he says. That's sort of his history. So
Yeah. Well,
which is weird because rude people are one of his pet peeves.
well, it's there's some projection there, maybe.
I don't see blacks, homosexuals. None of them are in his pet peeves anymore. Yeah.
Well, the one thing that first thing he would bring to the island with him is vodka. So.
Well, there you go. There's a statement like that. Yep.
Yeah. The thing that I thought about when I was watching him in the video is that he definitely seems like the kind of guy who. It's not that he's mean. There's not malice in it, but it really does seem like any consideration towards other people's feelings is so far down on the list of things that he thinks and cares about. And again, yeah.
That's how that quote was delivered. Like he didn't. I don't feel like he used it because the only one he used a slur for was the homosexual one.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else was just described. But I don't feel like he meant it to be like a slur. Like I don't think he said it as a slur, like to be mean. I think he just didn't think about it or care. Like that's how it came across. This doesn't even seem like a thing that's that bad to say. Like this whole like rant about why I don't want to live in New York. It was very weird. Very, and I think, yeah, selfish people was his other pet peeve that I kind of took issue with because, well, he may not be selfish. He is definitely self-centered, self-involved. Like, there's sort of a self-vision.
Yeah.
To the world,
So perhaps so we got the. Yeah, we had the timer already.
That was I was just making my point is that we ran out of time and we never talked about her, and that's probably about all the time it seemed that she deserved. She just kind of seems very snap judgment, very vapid, sort of this placeholder girlfriend that's with him.
I agree. I mean, it's always possible we could be surprised, but at least right now, I think, at least any time that she spends with him, she's going to just kind of be off to the side. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's one thing if they're split up, she's on a tribe all by herself and has to just do her own thing. But, she kind of fades into the background when he's there.
Yep. All right.
All right, so next is Josh Canfield and Reed Kelly. They are boyfriends. Let me start the timer. He's 32. Josh is 32. Reed is 31. They are boyfriends that have been dating for 2 years but don't live together. Here's something surprising from their video. Apparently, they are both Christian. Which, that's fine, but I'm just surprised. That's not normally something you expect to go together necessarily. But, for example, both of them said number one that they would bring to the island is the Bible.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's...
It will also it'll be interesting if they end up on John Rocker's tribe and if they're familiar with his quotations. Yeah. His musings.
Right. Well, because they're a water pairing.
Or,
Yeah. That's true, too. Wow. They are super cute as a couple in the video. They're just... they're very affectionate. You can tell they laugh and smile a lot. Let's see. Josh says, in addition to the Bible, he wants a piano so he could write songs and sing, and then also an iPod because life without music is just depressing. And I'm kind of thinking you could have one or the other of those and save your third for something else. But but I don't know. I'm not a musician, so maybe the fundamental difference. Oh no, we've lost the call again. Let's see. I've paused the timer. Trying try to get him back. Hope we did eventually figure it out, so maybe that's what it takes. The timer. They do seem really fun together, but if they are together on the tribe, I could imagine that potentially being annoying for other people, just because, you know, it is one of those things that they're perhaps slightly over the top with the cute couple thing. You know what I mean? It's one thing to think they're great fun in a social situation. It's another thing to spend 24/7 with it.
Yeah, I mean, even then, just their answers. I mean, they're very excited and wordy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's lots of where you could almost read it with exclamation points.
Yeah.
Fast cadence, you know. There just seems that's kind of how it feels. So.
Yeah, they talk that way too. Lots of words. Josh says he can make fire. That's good. They have some interesting hobbies. Josh mentions Settlers of Catan, which is a board game that is pretty popular in board game circles. But it's not one that, like, you know, the average mainstream person is likely to have heard of.
I'd never heard of it.
It's really fun, actually. I recommend it to anyone who's interested in checking it out. But to be sure, it's not Monopoly. And then, in the meantime, Reed, one of his hobbies he lists is Earth/cosmic science, which is kind of cool. My guess is that means he likes looking at pretty astronomy pictures, but who knows? Maybe there's more to it than that. I mean, you know, it's just reading about NASA missions and stuff too, or whatever. I do that too. It's fun. But yeah, we'll see what these guys will be like. Oh, there's the timer. We'll see.
Yeah, they both seem very athletic, so that could that's a plus. All right.
Yep. All right. So next is John Misch and Jacqueline Schultz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Misch, but we'll go for it. So they are boyfriend and girlfriend. He is 26. She is 25. He is a financial assistant, and she is a media buyer. Probst said that they could be labeled as Barbie and Ken, but he doesn't think that they will actually play together as a couple. Which some of the things that Probst said in that video were a little suspicious. There was a little bit of, you know, deliberately avoiding telling us whether they're going to be playing together or not. But then he would sometimes say things that were like clues, but for both directions. Almost as if he was being deliberately obfuscating.
Probst not known to do that.
Yeah. I don't think, based on watching the little video of these two, that they are on the same page about anything. They are, like, first of all, she mentions how she can't have kids, and that's fine, but they end up, in a 2-minute and 48-second video about them, they end up talking a lot about that and about maybe getting surrogate and stuff, and they're not married yet. And she says the unknown stresses her out. He's clearly way more into the game than she is, and she seems, at the snap judgment, of course, like she is more into the relationship than he is. So we'll see, but yeah, I do not see these two really lasting long in the game, and I don't know, maybe I'm not sure. It's hard. You never can tell with relationships, but they seem like they are not actually communicating very well. There's lots of talking, but not very much listening from either side, I don't think. Snap judgment!
Yeah. I can see the Barbie and Ken thing. I mean, he was an athlete at Michigan State. She was Miss Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I I see why they talked about it so much. She said that the reason why that she's on the show is to win the money so they can adopt a surrogate.
Oh, okay.
That's probably why it came up so much, because it's become her motivation.
That could be, yeah.
So we'll probably hear about it a lot.
She also wants to bring the Bible. Her other is to take cell phone for photos, and there's a part of me that wants to initially be sarcastic and say, they're already going to be on a TV show. Do they need more photos? But then at the same time, I know really that that's it's not the same. Photos that you take yourself while you're there is different than the footage. But anyway, number 3 is a stuffed animal to sleep with. And then meanwhile, he wants to bring piano to play and entertain myself and others, football for entertainment and to make friends, wine to get drunk, duh.
One of his hobbies is also researching wine, and one of her hobbies is learning about wine. So it sounds like it's a thing he makes her do.
It could be, so, and again, people should remember too, as we talk about these sorts of things, that it's snap judgments. Sometimes we're wrong, as we started at the beginning talking about how wrong we were about Spencer last time.
Yeah.
And there's the timer.
I do just like that terminology where they're talking about the same thing. He calls it researching, she calls it learning. So he's doing the researching and talking to her about it, and so she's learning.
Yeah. And he drags her along to wine tours, probably, and stuff like that.
All
right. Next up is Keith Nail and Wes Nail. They are father and son. He is 53, and he is a fire captain, or Keith is the father, and the son, Wes, is 23, and he is a firefighter. Could there be a connection? Maybe. These guys seem really fun to me, just based on their video. They're sort of very folksy. They talk in that very sort of plain-spoken, heavily accented way, but in sort of a charming way.
right.
So
They both share the hobby of hunting and fishing. The only way they differ is that the father's third hobby is golf, and the son's third hobby is beer. But
nice. Come on, you guys! You don't think you can put those two together?
typically, most people do, and I think that's. Yeah. I think the dad's using golf as a euphemism for beer.
I like that the first thing the father, Keith, would bring to the island is 39 cigars, presumably one per day.
Yep.
And then the easy chair, and then his truck. I like that he wants to bring his truck, because why? Because he likes it, I guess. I don't know.
Of course.
And then, of course, Wes wants to bring 1, beer, 2, dip/smokeless tobacco, and 3...
I have to clarify what that was. Yeah.
3, Mila Kunis.
He's got his priorities.
Yeah, yeah.
Dip and Mila Kunis.
So I doubt highly that these guys will be good Survivor players. However, it does seem like they are good guys that are probably fun to hang out with. That's kind of my general impression. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Remember when we elected a president based on that?
Yeah. Probst said that he likes them a lot. Just he thinks they're fun. You can see the resemblance that you can definitely tell they're father and son. Thinks they're both very passionate and that they will probably be audience favorites. They are definitely competitive between the two of them, but at the same time, this was my assessment too in the video, is that I don't think they've really done anything remotely like this before. which is fair. Most people haven't, but even still, it's just kind of, I'm not sure how prepared they are for something this different.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
Mhm. Yep. Still got almost a minute left.
Really?
Yeah.
Timed that properly.
So Wes describes himself as athletic, winner, and crazy. I love winner as an adjective there. Whereas his dad is easygoing, fun-loving, and hard-working. And he also says that he is a hard worker, and that's why he'll survive Survivor. And then, let's see. I don't know. Wes says he's most like Ozzy and Russell Hantz. So because I'll dominate challenges and have girls under my wings, making them think I will take them to the end. All right, we'll see about that. So next is Missy Payne and Baylor Wilson.
These two seem like a trip.
They are mother and daughter. Missy, the mother, is 47. Baylor, the daughter, is 20. I think probably just hearing the names Missy and Baylor, even outside of any other context, if you said which one is the mother and which one is the daughter, you could guess, just based on the names, Missy and Baylor.
Yeah.
Anyway, Missy is the owner of a competitive cheerleading gym. Baylor is a college student, although in the video it is very clear she is also way into the cheerleading thing. She did like cartwheels and stuff on the beach. She also does say, I am most proud of winning the cheerleading world championship in 2009 Orlando, Florida with my competitive cheerleading team. That's actually, it's easy to make fun of competitive cheerleading. I find it very easy. But at the same time, winning the world championship, that's an accomplishment.
It is.
That's not something that's going to be easy to do.
No, they both seem like very, you don't run a successful cheerleading gym and team without, it's almost a pathological, determination to, do these kind of things.
Yeah. Oh no, we lost you again. All right, so let's see. I think we're getting this down though. Maybe we can bring him back quickly. If anyone watching this has an idea what might cause this to happen, we're interested in finding solutions. We have not so far, just because both of us do speed test connections, and it seems like it's fine. It seems like it'll be completely fine and then just drop down to nothing for a second and then we lose the call. Hard to say. Anyway, though, it looks like we're bringing Mike back quickly, so good. If it's going to be that quick every time, that's hardly a big deal at all.
Yeah, I figured out how to get back. I figured out where your invites show up, how to navigate it. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I paused the timer for Missy and Baylor. Let me go ahead and resume that now. But you were saying how to run a gym is an accomplishment.
Right, and particularly a cheerleading gym and to run one that's successful in producing world championships. There takes almost like a pathological determination, and you can even see it in the kid when she says. Her pet peeves. Her biggest pet peeve is someone who has no passion or desire or goals. It's almost like this. They're like this stuff has been drilled into the two of them. So I think they're going to be really interesting with that, with this just over the top drive. So
yeah. Well,
we'll see. It's going to rub some people the wrong way, but it will help them initially, I think.
Hmm. Could be. One of the things that Missy said in the video, and this Probst kind of echoed this too, is just this idea that she's more like a friend than a mom. You know, and one of the things that she said in the video was something like, you know, me and my daughter are like the same person, only one is younger and one is. And then she like hesitates on saying older, like a total cliche, which you know, it's like I'm not even really going to give her a hard time on that, but at the same time, it does seem like, you know, there is that kind of mom sometimes where it's like lets the kid get away with anything because they want to be friends, but I don't know. At the same time, she seems.
They do seem like a cliche. I mean, not.
Yeah.
They seem like bad people. They just seem to be that cliche of like, you know, cheerleading mom and like, you know, that it. So we'll see. I think it can be entertaining.
Yep. So the I hope they'll do well, because even though there was some of those things that could sometimes be red flags, they did seem like they're both pretty friendly, energetic people. They get along with each other. I don't know. They could either of them could really do well.
Well, yeah, and they're so driven that they're going to want to do well at the game. So, all right.
All right. So, and now that brings us to our last pairing for this is Natalie Anderson and Nadia Anderson. They are twin sisters. Both of them are 28. They talk like twins in the video. Not that we would expect differently since they are twins, but it's definitely that whole thing where they both talk really fast and they constantly talk over each other, but they are clearly, they just have that, they're very much on the same wavelength as each other.
Yep, and they are also another example of our reality show cross-pollination that we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, they were both on The Amazing Race.
Yep. Assuming together.
Yes, they were on it together, although it occurs to me I could have looked up to see how they... so personal claim to fame, they were on The Amazing Race twice, and they got kicked off first on All-Stars.
Yep.
I like that they actually list that as one of the, as part of the claim to fame. You know, it's not just being on it twice, but actually pointing out that they got kicked off first on the All-Star season. So I don't know if they won their first season, but if they were on it and then invited back for All-Stars, that speaks well at least to the idea that they're entertaining television, which is also good news for us. Having them on this season, and I could see it too. I just mean like a little bit like what we talked about with Josh and Reed, that they're just kind of fast-talking, energetic, but just also the twin thing, just that it's that whole finishing each other's sentences thing. That I don't know. I'm entertained by that. Let's see. Natalie says that she would. The things she would bring to the island is a razor, because being super hairy in a bikini is not cute. 2, iPhone, so I can tweet and get on Instagram. And 3, barbells, so I can squat.
Yes. It should be noted that they are both CrossFit coaches as their profession.
I wonder if they do like classes at the same time. Like, you know, like you could have the class with the twin instructors.
Which is why also Nadia, her number 1 was barbells, because that's just sort of CrossFit, say indoctrination, but you know that's part of the whole thing is a lot of barbell. So
yeah,
that's that.
So Natalie describes herself as crazy, strong, and confident, whereas Nadia describes herself as badass, crazy, and carefree. So it occurs to me, this probably is the first time that we've had twins on the show, right? It's got to be. Because there's really only been one other season where they even had blood versus water, and did we have? I don't think we had twins on that.
No, we've had people who are twins, but we only knew they were a twin when their twins showed up at like the family, like,
right?
Like the letters from home, or not letters from home, but compete with a loved one.
Right, right. So let's see. So they're both, CrossFit instructors. That suggests that they would be both in good shape, but also, like adaptable. Like they're good at lots of different things, as opposed to just being strong or just being good at balance or whatever.
Yep.
Oh, there's the timer.
Nadia says she can win. She can be the sole survivor because she can thug it out.
Nice.
Leave it with that.
Yep. So that's it for the 18 castaways. But let's just talk about this season a little bit. We already talked a little bit earlier about the idea that just speculating. Will the pairs get to play together, or will they be separated? Alternately, is it possible that there would be actually a mixture of that, meaning like some pairs would be together and some would be separated? It seems like just out of fairness, you would want it to be all one way or all the other way, but I'm sure they're also interested in trying to mix it up a little bit more.
Yeah, true. Survivor's not known for like what's the most fair.
Yeah.
It's gonna be entertaining. Yeah.
So what we have in these 9 pairs is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blood pairs, and 4 water pairs, and so that's why it would be difficult to do just an even. The blood pairs is one tribe and the water pairs is another tribe, because you have that extra 2 people for blood. But if, for example, they do some sort of a challenge where, like, but again, it's one of the things is like if you could just take out any 2 people, then it would be easy to do a challenge where like only the last place pair get sent to Exile Island or something like that. But they would kind of need it to be a blood pair. So they could also, like you suggested, do something where they tell the blood tribe that, like, you guys need to do this first. But I don't know. I think the simplest thing would probably actually be for them to split everybody up again like they did last time.
Yeah. I was interested to see how many like guys and girls there were. Like if they could split it that way, and randomly, like, there would be a couple of blood pairs because, because when I first looked through it, there would be 2 blood pairs if they one on each tribe. If they split it guys versus girls, and then 1 water pair on the guys tribe, but that doesn't work out because that's 10 guys and 8 girls. So. They couldn't split it. Well, we could split it that way, but there would be an uneven team that way too. So. Yeah,
it's tricky stuff, I'm sure. I wonder if it's the 9 pairs. I wonder if it's a similar sort of thing about the way that it's going to split. And it also occurs to me that probably the information is out somewhere. If we were to do some digging on the internet, somebody probably knows the answer to this. But
It also occurs to me that the show's in 3 days.
Yeah, we can find out then. This whole pre-show is not really intended to be some sort of a definitive Bible for the season. It's more just, what are we thinking about as we prepare for the new season? I hope.
I was going to say, as with the last time that we did the blood versus water and we had the pairs, it's harder for me to formulate like a favorite, like on a snap judgment, because they come in group. pairs. So I don't really have a favorite. I'm pretty open to see kind of how this all goes.
Yeah. Well, so what do you think about? Do you think they're going to do again the whole bit about if someone's getting voted out, then their loved one can like volunteer to take their place?
Probably because even though it was like a nonsense thing, it did come into play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it worked exactly how I think they would have expected. In that it's a bad idea. It requires an emotional response as opposed to a logical response,
Mm-hmm.
and so most people are not going to do it. However, I think only one person took them up on it, and it
Yeah.
was interesting enough that you might as well leave it out there for the case that you might get another emotional response like that.
Yeah, because even several of the people who didn't do it ended up feeling guilty about it. Like there's an emotional feeling like they should have done it, even if the rational part of their mind says, in terms of gameplay, it's dumb. But
Yeah, so
um,
just because something is unequivocally a bad idea in almost all scenarios, because it has that emotional context, you might as well leave it in there. It makes it interesting. It puts people in that decision making.
mhm.
You know? So,
So, what do you think about the return of Exile Island as opposed to the whole redemption thing? You know, where you have the players who are still more ostensibly in the game. They're well, not just ostensibly, they're still in the game, but just not at camp. They're off on Exile Island.
I and how did they get back in? I forget how that. I
Well,
guess
I
I'm.
think
I guess I'm old. I guess until you just said that, I forgot that they were two different things.
yeah, well, so redemption was where someone gets voted out, but instead of being completely gone, they go to Redemption Island and then have to sort of, they can potentially last long enough there to come back. Exile Island was more like in the reward challenge, either whoever came in last or if someone who was the winner gets, like people who where the winning team got to vote or something, and you would send someone to Exile Island, and then they would have to stay there basically until the next challenge.
That's right. Which is different, by the way, than I completely messed up my, Biggest Loser thing. That's a Redemption Island
Hmm.
construct, not an Exile Island construct.
Well, there's
Um,
blurry lines there anyway.
uh, I, I guess I don't remember enough about how it all worked, except that it was always somewhere really miserable and just made people really unhappy. So I don't remember anything good about it, except that I think you could find an idol.
Yeah, they typically had idle clues over there. Basically, it's yeah. So as the Survivor Wiki here just describes it, it's Exile Island is a small campsite apart from the actual tribe camps where a single contestant will be left banished for a predetermined period of time. Though in seclusion, the banished castaway will have a sort of consolation prize, such as the clue to the location of a hidden immunity idol that may or may not be hidden there, or comforts. And on the wiki here it says it has not been used since Survivor Tocantins, but the Redemption Island twist is somewhat similar to Exile Island in premise. But definitely the website here has a post called "The Return of Exile Island." So it sounds like that is what it will be this time, rather than Redemption Island. Which honestly, there's some drama about the whole Redemption Island thing, but I'd just as well not do that every time because, first of all, it dilutes the power of the people getting voted out because you know that they're not actually gone yet. Um, and then also just this idea that like anyone who actually succeeds in getting back in is going to be immediately voted right back out again. Just like, why would anyone else do anything other than that?
Yeah.
But, oh, here, so in this post about it for this season, it says, this season also marks the return of Exile Island, where each week 2 loved ones square off against one another in a battle that will send the loser to isolation on Exile Island, while the winner receives reward for his or her tribe. However, the winner will also have to choose a tribe mate to accompany their loved one to Exile Island. That's interesting.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. We'll have to see how that plays out. Maybe they've got some clever way of...
So there's definitely a lot more to it than we're used to.
Yeah, yeah. So, this post at least is definitely also hyping this whole question of raising the question of which is thicker, blood or water. But I don't know, they might say that regardless of whether they really pair the blood pairs against the water pairs. I could say pair a few more times.
In 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. So I think anything else you want to say about this season of Survivor? Are you pumped? Are you excited?
I am excited. I'm always excited for the fall one because it feels so long coming,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The winter break is much shorter. And in some ways, not that we need a vacation, but it also just you don't have that much time to miss it. But fall, it's coming back. There's also season 29, which just all my friends who don't actually watch Survivor, every time I mention it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's still on, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, season 29."
29.
Yeah. Now again, as you and I know, that's two per year, so it's not 29 years, but it's still almost 15 years. That's still a lot.
It is a lot. I mean, there's not a whole lot of other shows that have that kind of longevity. I mean, The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it that I can think of.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, still going strong as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
So maybe that does it for this time, this pre-show. Thank you, those of you who watched. We had a couple of viewers here and there during this broadcast, and apologies for the interruption periods a couple of times, but I think it sounds like we've mostly got that figured out now, so at least it won't be long gaps if it happens in the future.
Yep.
So as we move forward, this will also be available both live, but also will be on YouTube as a video you can watch later. And the audio version of the podcast isn't going anywhere either. So if you're listening to this as audio, be aware that if you go to the website and also at YouTube, you'll be able to watch the video version as well. And so the whole idea here is to have all 3 versions available. You can watch live when we do it, or watch on YouTube video later, or just stick with the audio if that's your preferred method. So that'll do it for this time, and thank you everybody for watching/listening.
Thank you.